Hello everyone, and this is my tutorial on how to make a rock paper scissors game in Java. And by the way, if you're new to this channel, I'm Vignesh and I post videos or tutorials in Java. So we could go ahead and create a new project called rock paper scissors game. Yeah, that project is created, and I'd actually like to introduce this project with an enum, which is going to be called a weapon. And what are enums first? If you don't know enums already, please listen. An enum is actually, wait, I'll open my dictionary here, and it's actually an English word short for enumerated. Okay, enumerate is mention a number of things one by one. Yeah, so as that's the meaning of enumerate, an enum is the base class for all enumerated types. So what are they? It could store a list of things like mentioning things one by one, but an enum is as powerful as a Java class. You could add methods in them. You could have anonymous classes, static methods, everything you could do in classes, you could do with them in enums, but you have to have at least one enum constant. We'll get into this. And yeah, this is a rock, paper, and scissors. If you try to do this in a class, okay, just one note, a weapon is a Java enum, which is already mentioned. It's as powerful as a class, and the important thing is that rock, paper, and scissors are all objects of weapon. If you try to put them in a class, if you try to have a class, something like class weapon, just in case you don't know enums, class weapon 1 for now, this will be equivalent to this, a public static final weapon 1 rock is equal to a new weapon 1. And okay, anyways, this is just an example. Static final weapon 1 paper is equal to a new weapon 1. Yeah, and publish again final weapon 1 scissors is equal to a new weapon 1. Okay, this is how a class would look if this kind of thing was not made in enum. It would be this ugly. And you realize that each of these, and this is exactly equivalent to this, and thereby I save a lot of lines of code. I make it look really easy. And the main thing is that when you use enumerated types, you choose an enum, or maybe if you want to have a singleton, like you're not a beginner, you know these design patterns, and when you want to implement singleton, if you're a beginner, don't worry, okay. If you want to implement singleton, you could have a single enum constant, which could be called instance, and you write the code you'll write in your class, blah blah blah, and this would act as the public and the only object of this enum. And you could have constructors for enum just like classes, and the main thing is that in enums you have a default private constructor, and unlike a class in which you have a default public constructor. So you don't I actually over specify the importance of enums because we're not going to use all of those features. We're only going to keep our enum simple, and that's it. Got rock paper scissors. Yeah, the one more thing I want to have is, okay, I have to put a semicolon is optional if I'm only having constants, but if I want to write code below, I need to put that semicolon. It's a delimiter, right? And each constant is separated by a comma, instead of in a class where you separate objects by semicolons when you initialize them. And we're gonna have a private static final map, a map which maps a weapon type to another. Okay, a weapon to another. Okay, weapon to another weapon. Import Java, it'll map. Yeah, map is equal to. So wait a sec. So what this is gonna do is map a predator with a prey. So I'll basically be mapping a rock with paper. Rock with scissors, and scissors with paper, and paper with rock. And now I'm gonna use some Java 8 syntax. This is Java 9 syntax, and it is where you're allowed to do an inline initializer. And what I'm just gonna put all those in a single line, like a rock with scissors, and scissors with paper, and a paper with a rock. That should be fine. And as you see, this is much simpler than writing a method to initialize this map. And the added advantage of using map.off, if you're on Java 8 or below, then you simply switch to an ordinary map, as this is not valid. This is not a valid syntax for Java 8 or below, but in Java 9 you're allowed to do that. And what this basically does is it has an inline initializer, and it returns an immutable map. And what is immutability? That would be a good topic to research on, because it's a great notion in the programming world. I personally love it. And even I'll just give you a gist. An immutability means unmodifiable. Like in this instance, when you create this map, no one can ever modify it, except you maybe. Like you can't do something like this. Like you can't add something to the map, but obviously you could insert something else here, as you know. If you're using the getter, that is the publicly exposed accessor method, then the clients won't be able to change this map. It will remain constant. That's a thing I wanted to specify. If you want to know more about immutability, you could do Google searches and watch videos on YouTube, but much more than that, I'll recommend that you read books. And a good book I can recommend is Effective Java, which I'll link in the description below. And the next thing I want to introduce is straight away a class with the main method. This is gonna be short, and you realize that just having an enum did not take much of my time if I did not go explaining it. Okay, so in the main method, I'm gonna have I could just prompt the user to print a number. To enter a number. Please, who needs that? Please enter a number. And you need to have an instance of a scanner, and you pass the system's input stream, and you're simply gonna do this scanner.nextInt, and you're gonna store it in a variable which is int num, let's say. And the game will this number is the number of times they will play the game, after which it will terminate. So we've got that number now, and a simple for loop which loops till the number, and we're gonna have an int points. Actually what I'm doing now is not object oriented. You could modify it a bit. The thing I'm doing is that instead of creating a couple of classes, actually I did a rock paper scissors game creating some interfaces in classes and enums, but this is gonna be like not so object oriented. I'm sorry, but we'll proceed. So the main thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a parser that parses a string. Like if the user enters rock, it'll obviously be in the form of a string, and from that string you have to extract the weapon from it. Yeah. And this is simply gonna be a static method, and a public static weapon pass, and it passes a string. And exactly what you're gonna do is have something like s is equal to s dot to uppercase, and you're gonna use the built-in method now, value of s, and return that. Or maybe, yeah, instead of having multiple lines, yeah, exactly. In case the user enters in lowercase, it should be case insensitive, so it converts into uppercase, the case in which all our enum constants are there, and it should do well. And now I'm gonna do this weapon. Okay, the next thing we want to do is have a computer's weapon. So a weapon. Hey, wait. Okay, what does value of return actually? Okay, it throws an exception if it's not there. Instead, we should make it more flexible instead of doing that, because if the string is invalid, we don't want some red lines to come on the console and confuse the user. Instead, we are gonna print that's invalid and give him or her a chance to retry. So yeah, first we convert it to uppercase, and what we're gonna do is some Java 8 syntax here. You're gonna stream all the values, and your values is a built-in method that returns these weapons, rock paper scissors, in an array, and dot filter, and you're gonna filter the okay, we're gonna name it weapon here so that it's much more readable, and you're gonna filter the weapon, and that toString contains s. Yeah, what is this? Okay, it should be final, like a variable used in lambda expression should be final, so we'll ask the IDE to do that. Yeah, okay, if it contains, and we're gonna make it more flexible. If final s contains final s contains weapon, that toString, and you find the first one which returns an optional, because if nothing matches, then it returns an empty optional. Otherwise, it returns a weapon wrapped in an optional. Optionals are simple. It was added in Java 8, and if you don't know that, an optional is actually something that usually when you return something, and when you can't return something in such and such situations, you either choose to return null or throw an exception, and both has their own disadvantages. And an optional is simply a generic class that wraps up a value, and you could either choose to return an empty optional if you can't return something, otherwise return a value wrapped in that optional. What this find first simply does is that if there is any match, it finds the first. If there are a few matches, it finds the first among that matches and returns it. Otherwise, if there are no matches, it returns an empty optional. Find first. Okay, this should be it, and you return it. If you didn't understand now, you'll understand it with the client code. And it's complaining because, okay, we'll hover over it, and you see that you have to return an optional of weapon instead of weapon. We could do that. Simple. That's it. Okay, this must be right, or instead of having two things here. Yeah, would this compile? Yeah, great, it did. And now, as we could pass it, now we have a weapon, computer weapon, equals a random value from that weapon. So we're gonna have a random object instance, a new random, okay, and that random's okay. First thing we're gonna do is weapons values. Values returns an array, and as it's an array, you can have an index, and here the index is gonna be a random number. So random's next integer in the values length. Yeah, exactly, that should be fine. And an optional of what was it? An optional of weapon user weapon equals weapon. Okay, weapon dot pass the scanner's next input. Yeah, great. And user weapon dot, we have this if present thing which returns a weapon, and now it's gonna be simple. As we've already introduced that map before, we have weapon. Don't have that map. Okay, we didn't introduce a getter for that. A public static map of a weapon and a weapon, and and this returns the map, and we don't need to worry about returning it because, as I already mentioned, it's an immutable map and it can't be modified when you're publicly exposing it as well. Weapon.map.get the computer weapon, and as you see, the key wins the value. So if we, for example, if the computer weapon's rock, and the computer weapon's rock and scissors is the user's weapon, then he wins. Get computer weapon dot equals user weapon. If so, have an if here. If, and okay, why is this doing this? Is always false. Oh, okay. It's, as this is an optional, it'll always be false, and IntelliJ caught that error and is telling to me. And this means that if the computer's weapon is the key and the user's weapon is the value, then the computer wins that. So have a points minus minus here. What does this do? Okay, I'll use, instead of having this large lambda which, and yeah, it doesn't compile, and instead of having a large lambda which destroys the beauty of lambdas, you could use it traditionally. If UserWeapon dot is present, then we add that curly braces, and then what do? If that computer weapon equals UserWeapon dot get, then it's gonna decrement the points of the user. Otherwise, if UserWeapon dot get equals computer weapon, okay, sorry, I actually made a mistake here. I didn't even get it from the map. Weapon dot map dot, okay, what dot get that. Okay, yeah, great. Otherwise, if weapon dot map, you're getting the user weapon equals the user weapon dot get. Sorry, it's an optional. It's not. User weapon will simply pass in an optional. Yeah? User weapon dot get equals the computer weapon, which means that the computer will lose. Then it's points plus plus. Okay, what is this? Else without if. I've made a mistake here, I guess. Huh? What is this? Oh, have I not closed the parentheses? Okay, yeah. It's gone well. Yeah. Now if I put that else if, it'll still work well. Okay, if in case they both enter the same value, the computer weapon and the user weapon is the same value, then you do nothing to the points. And yeah, the first thing I want to do is I want to print out weapon dot, okay, not the user weapon, obviously, the computer weapon, and will this work well? Anyways, if we make a mistake, we could catch it while debugging, but now we print out the points here. Yeah, print the points. Now we'll run this. Obviously it's gonna fail because this is the first time we're running it. Don't expect great results when you're running it for the first time. Obviously if you've worked a lot of times with Java, you would have known that. But if you're a beginner, don't expect immediate results. If you're a programmer especially. Yeah, if working with Java as a programmer anyways. 3. And okay, I need to prompt the user to enter something. Enter rock, paper, or scissors. Yeah. And we could go and run this now. Yeah, enter a number. I'll hit 3. Yeah, hit rock now. Okay, rock 0. It came well. Paper now. Scissors and -1. Yeah, it's working well. I hit scissors now. And rock and -3. Yeah, it worked great. That's exactly what we're expecting here. And a note is that instead of using an enum, if you use some other data type, it wouldn't provide a compile time safety, first of all. And the second is that an enum comes with an overridden toString. Like if you work with Java, if you're comfortable with Java and you've worked a lot, then you must have known that there's a toString method in object, and if you don't want to get garbage when you print it out or in the debugging screen, then you have to override toString. But in enums, you don't have that burden. Enums come with a built-in toString that prints out the name of this thing. If you're really interested, you could, I guess, read the source code of enums, and in like we working in these great IDEs here, you could just in IntelliJ, I'm doing an IntelliJ on my Mac, I'm doing command click, and you could read these source codes if you're bored or you want to learn more. It's actually interesting to read the source code, and it strengthens your programming ability. That's what I do in my free time. I read the open source codes. Okay, anyways, actually this main method is quite big and ugly. Okay, what if I could initialize this in the for loop? Yeah, I could do this. Okay, wait, I have to modify my for loop a bit for that. Int I is equal to 0, and now I'll paste this in here. Hilariously long though, and okay, that's gonna make my loop actually hideous. Let it be like this. But sometimes if you don't know, you could initialize not only integers, but you could also initialize objects inside the for loops, and most of the time it makes my code really easy to read, and it could reduce something like 3-4 lines of code to a single line. But in this case, it's kind of a huge long line. Anyways, that's it. It's done. You could add whatever you want extra, and bye.